Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio and the Spirit Society of Virginia in our Friday Inspirational Talks. And today, it's a promise to inspire us to the max because Debora Beldowicz is here with us. And it's a joy. She's going to talk about let us be courageous. And we need it more than ever after this year and a half of pandemic. It's all that we need. So we have a lot to share with you. But let's not forget, you can participate. You not only listen to it, but you can make comments. And we're going to share your comments. And we would like to hear from you. Questions. So we make this moment very rich. Very rich. All right? So we're going to begin, as we always begin, logging in together into the account of the good spirits. How do we do it? By connecting higher. So we need a message to inspire us, to make us forget about our daily things, and then a prayer. Shall we? Right, Camila?
That's right, Vanessa. Thank you. Good evening, friends. Tonight, we will read chapter 2 from the book, Our Daily Bread. And the message is called, Think a Little. Jesus' statement says, "The works I do in my Father's name bear witness of me." The concern of ordinary individuals regarding family traditions and the earthly institutions to which they attach themselves is commonplace, as is their taking pride in the conventional titles that identify who they are as persons. However, in the life that is real, no one is known by such things. Each spirit brings with it the living history of its own deeds, and only the work it has accomplished will reveal each spirit's worth or demerit. By this, we do not mean that words do not have their undeniable advantages. Nonetheless, one must understand that words are also a profound potential received from the infinite goodness as a divine resource. Thus, it is crucial for us to know for certain what we are doing with this gift from the eternal Lord. In this respect, Jesus' statement is clothed in unperishable beauty. What we would say about a Savior who set rules for humankind without having shared in its problems and obstacles. Christ began his divine mission among peasants. He lived among irascible doctors of the law and rebellious sinners. He associated with the sick and the afflicted. He ate the hard bread of humble fishermen and finished up his holy work between two thieves. What are you hoping for? If you're waiting for an easy life and situations of prominence in the world, remember the Master and think a little.
Thank you so much, Camila. Now we invite everyone to join us in a prayer. And at this time of the year, it's so important to learn to pray. For those who are not familiar, Kardec, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in its second to last chapter, it talks about prayer, what it is, how we do it. And then the last chapter, collection of prayers. Why is it important? Because when we pray, we're connecting with God, ourselves, not that God is not connected to us, but then we change our vibrations. We vibrate higher, and thus we're able to perceive better the instructions that we need. So let us pray together now, visualizing a circle of healing. Wherever we are, let us visualize that we are forming a current wherever we are. And all together, we can be benefited and also help others. Shall we, friends? Dear Mother, Father God, we know you are the only power in the universe. And everyone else and everything else is a natural consequence of your love. You created us to participate in your creation. How amazing is it to know that we are co-creators, that you count on us to be active, to proactively choose thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. A choice we're learning each and every day to make in greater wisdom, because we can still feel the consequences of our past choices. Some bring us joy, others still bring us pain, sorrows. We want to evolve past this moment, choosing to love, to let your love flow through us. So we are now united, thinking of those who may be either connected or not, but they need your help. We pray for their relief, for the consolation, for the support and the strength that they need. We all need your healing, and we visualize your divine light showering upon us, healing us deeply from within. We surrender to your love and kindly ask you to bless this moment of therapy for all of us. May we feel this current of healing permeating ourselves throughout this hour and facilitate the sharing of it with everyone in our homes, in our centers, anywhere and everywhere we are. And with your permission, we begin our session in your name and love, and so be it. Okay, so now, before we ask Deborah to join us, we have Paloma here, right, Paloma? To show
Yes,
the Spirit's moment. Let us hear it.
friends, as we continue to study the Spirit's book, today we are on question 936. And what a timely question for us to study at this moment in a pandemic. Kardec asked, how does the inconsolable grief of the surviving relatives affect the spirits who are the object of it? For us to focus here, friends, the word inconsolable. Kardec is specifically addressing that grief that just we lose control of it. Of course, when we lose a loved one, which we don't lose when you just transition, we grieve. But Kardec is asking about the inconsolable grief. What do the spirits tell him? They said, spirits are touched by the memory of those who remember them, as well as the grief felt by those they loved. But relentless and unreasonable grief affects them painfully because they see in such excess a lack of faith in the future and of trust in God, and consequently, an obstacle to progress and perhaps to their reunion. There's a lot here for us to digest. We need to remember that we vibrate, and our loved ones, when they transition, we are still connected. We still have fluids and connections between us. It's not because the body perished that those connections are lost. They're still there. So we vibrate. If we are in this unconsolable grief, what are we vibrating to our loved ones? Friends, unconsolable grief is a lot more for us. It's a lot of selfishness. I lost. Why did God do this to me? Why this and why that? And that's where the good spirit brings to us excess. In such excess, a lack of faith, because we question that moment. If we truly love, do we cry? Of course we cry, but we let God's will happen. We resign to it. In remembering that our connection is of love, what do? We vibrate love. We wish the best. And that possibly could allow us to have a reunion. The opposite's not true. If we are vibrating in different areas of the plane, then our reunion would be very hard to happen, or at the very least delayed. If you remember on the book No Solar, André Luiz couldn't see his mother. They were vibrating in different planes. She was there for him the whole time, but he couldn't see her. When they finally were together, he asked, "How about my father?" And she said, "I pray for him a lot, but he is still in the very lower zones." So André Luiz was delayed, but could eventually reunite with the mother, but the father was still vibrating in very different zones. Friends, let us keep this message in our heart. It's very timely, and it's important for us to tell people this. If they are going through grief, let us revisit how we process that moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paloma, for this special, super special, the Spirit's Book moment, so timely, as you said. And now we invite our dear Debora to join us. Kardec Radio knows Debora. She's been a host, doing wonderful programs, but she's also the president of a Spiritist Center in New Jersey that is there, open and flowing, and hasn't stopped at all in spite of the pandemic, right, Deborah? And you bring to us a message that crowns this month of the anniversary of the SSVA. Let us be courageous. And I think it's a message we need more than ever, Deborah. Don't you think so? We're all yours, Deborah. I have so much to say about you. But we want to hear you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you, everyone, for coming in here. And I hope you can see I'm going to do a presentation here on a PowerPoint, and I'm sure you will. But before anything, of course, thanks to Vanessa, thanks to, before anything, thank God that we're able to be here. And it's a privilege to be able to be here and to be able to talk freely about this. So today we are going to talk about courageousness. And it's such a topic because in Portuguese, I did this lecture at some point, and it was called Let Us Not Fall into Omission. And then I tweaked a little bit for us to bring a little more of a positive note on it, and talk a little more, concentrate more on courageousness and on courage. And why do we need courage? What is courage? And we're going to be talking, you might hear my dog, so let's be courageous to ignore the barks. But they're our lovely friends, right? The animals. So there's nothing we can do with a barking little animal. He's a big one. But anyway, we're going to talk about this. Not just a pandemic, but why do we need this courage as spiritists? And we're here and we talk about Kardec, we talk about Chico Xavier, we talk about Jesus, of course, but where is our courage? I love the reading that this video just started with, and it talked about think a little, and it talked about words. How much our words can influence. I mean, we have to think about what are the words that I'm not saying? What are the words that it's time for me to put them out of a thought, to let it go and to bring those words out? And this has to do with the Spiritist doctrine. It has to be with Spiritism. I can't keep it in to myself. There's something, I was just looking at, watching a documentary yesterday, and there was this fabulous notion that we all have pluses, minuses, and equals. And pluses are all our mentors, all of the books that we read, all the lectures that we watch, all the people that advise us. We need the pluses in our lives. We have to make this reflection to see what are my pluses, right? Who are my mentors? Who are my advisors? Who are the people that I have to be kind of like, listening to really kind of bring that in? Those pluses have to be in my life. Then there are the minuses, which doesn't mean that I'm going to lessen myself. It just means that I have to put what I have from the pluses to those who have less. So I have to also be a channel of teaching, of putting what I learned out there. And that's how you really learn. I mean, I can't give you a book on how to ride a bicycle. I can't give you a book. I can give you a book with all the technicalities of, if you place your right foot on the pedal and you move at such circumcision, I know I went all the way Jewish there, but you know what I mean. If you do this motion and this, but that doesn't mean that you know how to ride a bike. Circumference, that's what I meant. So you have to really put your foot out there, go outside, put it on the pedal and try. And then you're going to fall, and then you try again. And then eventually you know how to ride a bike. But you can't say that you know how to ride a bike if you simply read a book on how to ride a bike. And that's the same thing. So we have these pluses in our lives. Then we have to be a channel to teach what we learn from those pluses, so we can be in the movement of passing it on and learning along the way, but learning through our abilities, experience, action. And as spiritists, we can be here, and it's lovely for us to be here and listen to, at this moment, what I have to say. But at some point, we have to take that and then put that as a minus, or give that information to someone who needs it. And then we have the equals. And that's in life, we need those who are alike. We need to be in motion with those walking towards the same path, in the same path towards the same goal. We have to be, they say that you're the average of the 5 people that you're mostly in contact with. So it's interesting to see who are the 5 people that are mostly with you, that exchange ideas with you, that you talk with. So you're the average of those 5 people, but you have to have them kind of like an equal to kind of play around with things. And that means I have to have people that have some ideas that I can grow with, that I can contribute with. And that's the equal. So I need my pluses. I need to be the minuses as well. And then I need the equals in my life. So with Spiritism, we have to have courage to also partake in this whole process. Why do we need courage? And now this is where it gets interesting, before anything, let's talk about omission. What is omission? I love words. So when the reading came and it talked about words and the power of words, here's the Webster Meridian Dictionary. And it says this about omission: something neglected, left out, or left undone. Or it also says the act, fact, or state of leaving something out or failing to do something specially that is required by duty, procedure, or law. What's the importance about this omission? As spiritists, we cannot omit, especially now. We were just talking, Vanessa and everybody else, the whole board here, we're talking about how after this pandemic, mental illnesses, mental health is going to be something that is imminent to be talked about, to be helped. We see kids 10 years old, 9 years old, 11 years old, who believe that life has no meaning, and that's very dangerous. And if we omit the information that we have, we are doing a disservice to our gospel. Right on the bottom, Emmanuel, you might see on the slide, but I'll just say it to you. Emmanuel, from the psychography of Chico Xavier, he would say that the best charity we can do for Spiritism is its divulgation, or its give back, that minus that I talked about. Once we know, we have to put it out there. We cannot omit. That's an act of cowardice. We cannot be cowards. You can't be a coward spiritist. It doesn't fit. And to be a spiritist, you need a lot of courage, because a lot of times people don't know what it's all about. You might be persecuted. You might be ridiculed. You might be called crazy. But you know what? There's something that someone said about being persecuted, being called crazy, being called, maybe the Sermon on the Mount, maybe Jesus said that in his name. Many would be persecuted, many would be ridiculed, many would be. So it's not a concern of ours. Our concern is to not omit. So when I'm a spiritist, it is my duty, and that's why I love these definitions. And right there it says, failing to do something especially that is required by duty. What is my duty as a Christian? What is my duty as a spiritist, which is the same thing? It's to divulge, it's to say the good news, is to really put the word out there to these kids, to these people. Look, all is not lost. Everything there's a much bigger picture. This is a doctrine of bringing consolation, bringing this heartwarming feeling that it's all within God's will, that it's all in control of the Almighty. And really, it brings us this feeling of fortitude, really, to know that someone's watching over us and for us and is in our side. So I can't keep this information to myself. I can't claim to have faith and not propagate my faith. It's neglect, to say the least. And this is why the omission word is so important here. I cannot omit being a spiritist. How many chances do I have to talk about Kardec, to say his name, to bring the curiosity? And kids, it's wonderful when they Google Kardec, when they go to Kardec Radio, when they go to anywhere, and they really find a serious, safe source of information. It saves lives. So if I have that information, if all of the people that know Deborah, if they don't know the name Kardec, they don't know Deborah. And that's what I mean about omission. If you know me, I'm not saying that we're going to shove it down their throat and you got to know about Kardec. It's not about that. It's about not omitting the chances that you have to say it. That's neglect. So you have to have a lot of courage, because a lot of times you may be, people want to not hear. People may think it's an argument. People may think, but that's not your concern. Your concern is to bring out the curiosity to know this doctrine, to know Jesus. So when I am courageous, consequences it takes a different light now. This is the second definition where it says courage, same dictionary, mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Look how amazing. That's what courage is. Regardless of the consequences, I have to do what I have to do. So if you know Debora, you have to know that she's a spiritist, because it's a big part of my life and I need others to know. And I'm not here in a judgmental way at all. It's just a mind awakening that it came to me, so I have to pass it on to you, right? If people know Vanessa Anceloni, or people know Carolina, or people know, if they know those people, they have to know something that they've heard about Kardec or Spiritism, because it's part of them. And part of it is to have the courage to bring this knowledge out there. So the mental or moral strength, we may have the moral strength to talk about Spiritism, but we may not have the mental, because a lot of times you may be met with ridicule. You may be met with, just a clash, or people want to argue, or people think that Spiritism is different than being a Christian, or people may think that it has nothing to do. What is this? It's spirits flying away and all over. And until they are open for you to at least educate them on what it is, you're going to have a little doubt. People are aggressive because they're fearful of moving this whole status quo. So once there's no aggression really without anxiety and fear behind it. But once you reassure people that it's all okay, you're not there to fight, you're not there to argue, you're just there to present something that's helpful and good, most people are open to at least have a little seed planted there for them to either water it or just let it dry. But it's their choice. So, but we have to have this strength. We have to develop this mental ability to kind of like a thick skin, to really be courageous and put the word out there, because it's the good news. It's the gospel. And the gospel only exists because people have talked about it. And eventually someone wrote about it. And eventually someone translated it. And it kept going and going. And you know why? Because it was the good news. Because it saved us from ourselves, from our decline. So it's my duty now. And of course, courage, it implies that there's going to be some difficulties. What are some of the difficulties? A lot of times people will say, oh, I'm spiritualist. Let's not say I'm a spiritualist. Let's say I'm a spiritist. I remember when my mom went to the hospital at some point, and when you check in the hospital, sometimes they have a survey for you to check, race, religion. And when it got to religion, there was no box for spiritist. So most of the times, most of us, maybe we were brought up Catholic, we would just check Catholic or other. So I decided that at some point to make my own box. And I made a little box and I put spiritist. And then I put a big X. Because you have to have a little courage to defy the status quo. You have to have courage to open minds that have been dogmatic for so many centuries and thousands of years. And it takes courage for you to put yourself out there. I like a little bit of rebel, blood here and there, in a good sense. In a sense that you're doing it, and you may be attacked, you may, be attacked in the sense of, what is this? But you bring awareness. It's your duty as a spiritist to do that. That's what we're here to do. Remember, we can't have all these pluses. You can't listen to Kardec radio all day, go to every spiritist center, get the passes, the magnetized water, all of this, have all these pluses, have your psychiatrist, psychologist, doctor, and then keep it all to yourself and be retaining all of that. That actually will create illnesses. You have to put things out there. It has to be a flow, but you need courage. People may say, what's courage? It's really when you have to do what needs to be done, and you don't consider the consequences so much because it has to be done. Someone has to do it, so you do it. That's courage. It's not a job. You're not paid to do it. You're not expected to do it. It's your duty to do it. So let's be a little more courageous talking about spiritism. And again, Emmanuel says, we always talk about charity, but the best charity we can do is really to talk about it. It's words, not just words, because look at this. Francis of Assisi, he says this: preach the gospel at all times. If needed, use words. We're still at a time where we need to use words because our example are still very meek, very painted, very, it's not bright. We try very hard, but we're faced with so many challenges throughout our day, and it's very hard to be the living gospel. But it's our duty to strive to be, and that's the whole point. So Francis of Assisi, he didn't need to write, he didn't need to preach, although he did, but he was the example. So when he says that, when people come to you and says, Debora, you handled that so nicely. I can't believe that that person tried to get you to fly off the handle, or that person made a question that is really anybody else would have been, just, going out there and really just going and fighting or getting angry. Or, you know what, I liked how you handle when that happened, or I like how you acted in front of that person. And when they ask and they say, what is it that you do to be able to act that way? Or what is it that you believe that made you so calm in the face of a panic situation? And then you're able to say, I've learned a lot through Spiritism to be able to have this balance. So this is what it's meant by when you act, people will seek what it is that you do to be able to handle that. And that's why it's so beautiful to not talk the talk, but walk the walk. When I say that I want to be courageous, I can't just talk about courage. I have to demonstrate courage with my actions. And a lot of times it doesn't mean that you won't be afraid. Courage is never about not being afraid or anxious. It's just about doing it or trying to do it, even with the fear, because sometimes we're fearful, we're anxious, we don't know for certain, but we know it has to be done. We know someone's in need of help, and you just go and you help. And that's when people will come to you, want to know more about what it is that you believe. And that's an opening to talk about Jesus, to talk about, the doctrine that I so dearly love brings me this peace. And if you want, I'm happy to tell you about it. So this is what it is about. Preach the gospel at all times, but when, if needed, then use words. People will ask you. It's amazing when you start exercising calmness, when you exercise non-judgment. People will want to know, why is it that you're not taking sides? And then when you say, because I really don't know the full story of both sides. And above that, I don't have the capacity to judge. People will want to know more about this doctrine that you profess. People won't want to know about it if they find you in the middle, amidst tumult, amidst gossip. They won't want to know, or they might want to know so they don't join it. They don't join your train of thought. But in our hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. This isn't Peter. So this is in the gospel. And it's very interesting because it says that at any moment, someone might come to you and say, what is it that keeps you so strong? And sometimes I'm not saying that we're always going to be strong, but we're always going to exercise our faith. And that's what matters. And faith is this beautiful marriage between trust and surrender. That's what faith is all about. I trust that I don't know, but I trust God. I trust Him. I trust Jesus. And I surrender to the idea that I don't have control over all. And I surrender what I can't control. And that's this beautiful marriage of faith, trust, and surrender. So again, people will come to you and you have to be prepared to talk to them, to give them a reason that they ought to hope, that they ought to know that there's something better out there. And this is why it's so important around this time in our lives, because again, with this pandemic, there's a lot of lost hope. There's a lot of people that have no hope, that don't know, that have lost loved ones, that don't know if this is going to happen again. They don't know if they will have the financial ability to do things they did before. There's a lot of doubt. But when they come to you and they see the calmness in you, and that doesn't mean that, again, you're not going to be experiencing all the human emotions and all of that, but there's something extra. And that's what Spiritism brings to us, this perfect marriage of trust and surrender. And we have to study so we know how to exercise this trust, because you can't have blind trust. You have to trust with logic. I can't just trust someone because, a babysitter. Let's say you have a child and someone just shows up and says, I can babysit for you. Go out with your husband and have a nice dinner and I'll watch your daughter. You can't just blindly trust, right? We would love to say, hey, trust everybody. Unfortunately, people are in different steps, of evolution. So we have to be diligent. I have to find out who this person is, their history, how they watch children. Have they watched children before? Are they loving? How would they discipline my daughter should she do something wrong? So the thing is, I have to exercise this. So I have to have some studying behind so I can trust. That's why the more science, the more God. The more we study science, people think that science and religion are two different things. Well, religion, yes, it is. But spirituality, let's talk about it. Spiritism, Kardec is the first one who said, if you find anything that is opposite of what the spirits have told us, then stay with science. If science ever proves him wrong, keep science. How amazing that is. And nobody has ever found a thing to contradict what the spirits have brought us in the codification. So, but you have to be this person ready to tell anyone at any moment why they should have hope. And that's very important because you have to have courage to speak about something so delicate that is faith. And this faith that is the solid thing that we have, again, put together through Spiritism. Spiritism strengthens our faith because it solidifies everything that I've studied with everything that I, at some point, the dogmas, what they made me believe. And then I say, oh, I get what it's true, what's not true. But then I have this element of surrender. And I surrender to the Creator. And He is so good and so right that everything is good and right, even though we can't see it that way. So this gospel, what is gospel? What is practicing gospel? It's really telling stories, right? When Jesus, he told stories all the time. He spoke in parables because, again, if he had spoken in a way that he wanted to, people wouldn't understand. I mean, he spoke with his disciples differently because they could understand a little better. But if I'm here speaking with you and I can't put the words right, then there's no communication. It doesn't matter if I'm a doctorate of language, but if I can't make myself understood, then there is no communication. There's noise, but there's no communication. So we have to be ready to communicate about the gospel. At a party, at the bus, you don't know who's sitting next to you. You don't know if that person just tried to, who knows, attempted against their own life. You have to be ready to give them hope with what you have learned. To say, it's okay. I'm here. Do you need help? Do you want a word? What can I do for you? We don't need judgment. We don't need why would you do this? It's not preaching. Preaching is very different than offering hope. Sometimes people don't need words. Sometimes they just need your presence. Moving on, I like Martin Luther King Jr., where he says, the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty, by the bad people, but the silence over by the good people. And this is exactly how it gets married into what we're talking about. It gets, again, married into omission and courage, because there's a lot that goes on in the world. There's a lot of bad things happening. The problem is not the bad things happening. It is a problem, but that's not the biggest problem. It's really those who remain silent, those who takes no side. And taking sides are not a bad thing. You have to side with the good and with the right. You can't stay in the middle of, I'm just going to be there in the middle and not take sides, because that just shows that your ego is so unhealthy that you need people to like you. And the easiest way to get people to like you is to not have an opinion. The easiest way to get people to like you is to say yes to everyone, is to want to be liked, is to just say, well, I'm going to go with the flow. Whatever it takes me, I'm going. It's easier that way. And it absolutely is. But that's a disservice to the Spiritist doctrine. Again, we can't just be silent anymore. We have to talk about Kardec. We have to knock on the doors. I really appreciate those who come to the door and knock and they give the brochure. I know. Sometimes we can say, but you know what? To wake up in the morning and to get dressed and to go and to give a brochure about, what anyone believes that goodness and love is, I commend that. Those who go and they go in the corners and they preach the Bible and they distribute Bibles, I commend that. And it's interesting because they are exposing themselves a lot of times even to ridicule, to be laughed at, to be even in danger. But they're doing it because if they're doing it because of the right reasons, it's commendable. And we have to do that. We have to be a living scripture. We have to be a living book of hope for someone. And that doesn't mean that we won't have moments that we are challenging our own issues. Sometimes we're challenging our own, not our issues, but challenging our own material to deal with the issues that we have ourselves. But in the end, at the end of the day, we have to say, it's all okay. I'm okay. I'll be okay. And I have to tell people it's going to be okay. So what I can't do is keep silence. I cannot omit what I know anymore. This is on the Spirit's book at 643 question. It says this: in order to be acceptable in the sight of God and to ensure our future happiness, is it sufficient not to have done evil? Or the question is, hey, if you do no evil, let's say you don't do good, but you also don't do evil. There's a lot of people that say that, look, I don't practice charity. I don't do this. I don't talk about the gospel. I don't present Jesus to anyone. But you know what? I don't do anything evil either. I don't go, hurting animals. I don't cheat. But this is what the spirits will answer. Like they ask, is this enough? And the spirits will answer, no. It is necessary for each to have done good also, to the utmost limits of his ability. Look at this phrase. It's amazing because it says, to the utmost limits of his ability. That's almost scary, right? Because you are supposed to do good to the utmost limit of your ability. Those people that say, I'll do as much as possible to be at the center. In Portuguese, we'll say, eu vou fazer o possível. In English, it'll be like, I'll do my best to be there. And then you don't show up, right? You have a duty. It's your day to be with the children, or it's your day to lecture. It's your day to help in the kitchen, whatever it is. And then you don't go. And somebody else will do it, because usually there's always someone that will substitute us, which is not the right thing to do. But then, is it really, was it real? Did you really do every single thing possible to be there? Because sometimes we say, well, the car broke down, so I can't go. Well, if it was a job that was paying you $10,000 for just 1 hour, would you have found alternative ways to be there? And that's the importance, right, of doing good to the utmost of your ability. Because if for one reason you would practice, but for something else you would not, then we're being partidary. You know, we have here two different parties, and I'm choosing which one is more convenient to me. If I can say, you know, that's the thing. Like now, where a lot of places are opening, right, to have spiritist centers, and some may have, look, we can only have 5 people, and we're going to have 5 chairs with distance from each other. Everyone will have their masks. Everyone will have their guideline, and then it's safe. Let's say that it's very safe to be there. And then one person will say, well, I'll do my best to be there. But they will be, and again, this is not coming from a judgmental way. It's just for us to really put in our minds, what is priority to us? Because if I can sit in a restaurant and have a hamburger with a friend, then I ought to be able to sit in my spiritist center. It could be outside like Vanessa does, and it's wonderful. The wind is out there, the weather is beautiful. So if we can't really take part when it comes to things of God and doing good, we can't pick and choose by convenience. And we have to, and it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to say no to be in a restaurant with 30 other people, again, with no masks, eating and things flying around all the air. But then saying no to sitting with 3 people to a study in a spiritist center. That's when you start, how can you be an example of the gospel? So that's why we have to be so careful for our choices and what we really stand by and what really matters, right? So again, no, it's not necessary for each to have done good also, but the utmost limits of his ability. For each of you will have to answer not only for all the evil he has done, but also for all the good which he has failed to do. Oh, this one hurts a little bit when we hear that, but this is one of my favorite questions on the Spirit's book. And I have gone over and over, and I've done lectures in my mind about this. And this is very heavy sometimes, because it's saying that you're responsible for everything that goes wrong, and you could have been there to help, and you chose not to. It's very strong, my friends, because today we could be at the beach, we could be here, but we had a duty to be here on, right here in Virginia, right? Virtually, but it was my duty to be here. So if I was not here, and maybe what I had spoken on this lecture helped one person, but if I didn't show up, that means that I am responsible for everything evil that happens with that person because of my choice for not being here. Is that clear? Because that's very, that takes a whole different level of responsibility. That takes a whole new way of seeing things. Because the minute that I say it's not enough to not do evil, but it's my responsibility to do all the good that I'm capable of doing, look at that, to the limit of my ability. So of course, one that has more abilities, more is given to you, more will also be asked from you. See, we can't just pretend anymore. I can't just say, it's too much. I can't, because now I have the sense of responsibility. But when you do it with love, that's a whole different story. When you do what you do because you love it, because you want to help, that's when you speak about Jesus, because he is awesome. And because you want people to know him and say, wow, I'm not alone, even when I think I'm alone. That's amazing, because you're not just doing with a sense of duty. You're doing it with a sense of duty and love. That's what it's all about, to be courageous. See, courage, it surpasses all our fears because of love. Because I love, then I'll have all the strength. Because I love, I trust, and I surrender. Good actions is not just about to be charitable, but in being useful within one's possibility every time there's a need. This is in the gospel according to Spiritism. Again, it's not enough just to do good. It's not enough to just be a nice person and be charitable. And we know, in Spiritism, the book of the spirits, in the spirits book, there's a definition of charity, right? To be good, benevolence with everyone. That means being good to everyone, not just to those who are good to you. There's no merit there. Love the lovable. Oh, that's great. Go love those who don't love. Try to really exercise love towards someone who's done an evil act. That's the challenge right there, right? But that's the first part of charity, is to love, period. And then the second is really to be indulgent, or that is, don't be so quick to judge. Give it some time. Allow people to make their mistakes and to correct their mistakes, and don't just go there to judge them. And then, of course, last is to forgive. Forgive others and forgive yourself. But again, good actions is not just about that. It's more. It's being useful. So to be courageous, to be part of the solution, is to also put yourself in a position to be useful. We can't hide. We can't just, it's a beautiful summer. We can be at the beach. There's time to be at the beach. There's time to work. There's time for all things under the sun. It's a question of prioritizing, of getting help and conciliating your time. But there's time. There's time to be useful for something bigger than just yourself or your family or making money or getting a degree. You can be very useful to others within one's possibility, of course. Of course, God sees one's possibility and what they can be useful. But you know what the beautiful thing is? We can all be useful. We are all children of God. We can all take one passage from one of the books that you love, one of Kardec's, and pick one question and stick with that question and bring that question to someone that you don't know too well, or someone that wants to know a little bit. One question. When one goes into the pulpit, right? When the podium, we have to be careful to understand that, who am I glorifying there? Why am I saying that? Because sometimes we can get caught up with ourselves and forget about the message and forget about who we're here to glorify, which is Jesus. Who are we here to talk about? Kardec. It's not about me. It's not about the messenger. It's about the message. So it doesn't matter if it's Deborah who's talking here, or if it's Maria, or if it's Eduarda. It doesn't matter. What matters is the message has to be getting across. And that's my point here, is it doesn't really matter if you remember what I look like or my name, but if you remember to glorify and just remember that, hey, I need to be the reason that somebody else believes and hope. That's then my duty has been, my goal has been achieved. A lot of times we see lecturers that are more worried about, their own self-image. It's a lot of career lecturers that they will fly 5,000 miles to give a lecture to a public of 5,000 people, but they won't go across the street out of their own hometown, to lecture or to talk to a homeless person across the street. So you see, the message has to be given to anyone who's put on your way. And that's why you have to have this courage. Sometimes it's not very courageous to get on a plane and go lecture at a spiritist center far away, but it takes a lot of courage to get out of your own house and go to the bakery in the corner and talk about the gospel. You see, when you go talk to those who are receptive, it's very appropriate. It's very easy even. But when you talk about someone who doesn't know, who you don't know if it's going to be receptive, he or she will, that's courage. And that's what I want to challenge everyone, to start speaking more about the gospel, to really look, Jesus is right here, right here next to me, or maybe he's on this side. I'm not sure where he is, but he's here. If you know me, you have to know that I also have my friend, my brother, Jesus here next to me, because I can't have him ignored if I'm with him. You see, you have to be courageous to allow people to get to know you and get to know Jesus and get to know who Kardec is and what is this information that Kardec brought. You have to be open to talk to people. Let's put our phones down in the subway and let's just be there and maybe start a conversation. Let's be open to talk about this. If you've been the whole day and you not once mentioned the word Jesus or anything that will bring someone hope, it's a day that could have been used a little better. This is our master. He didn't care about a podium, an excellent radio system, air conditioning. We are so privileged. I'm just looking at the time once in a while. I look down, okay? But he didn't really care about that. He just cared about the message. At one point, they asked him, Jesus, you are so good. And he said, no, good is only my Father. He even said, the only time that he said about himself is, I am meek, right? And humble. That's the only time that, he said that he was the path, but with himself, he said that I'm meek and I'm humble. That those are the only two things that he called himself. Like we call ourselves, oh, I'm good, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm tired, so adjectives, subject, all kinds of things, But Jesus only called himself meek and humble. How beautiful is that? He's meek and he's humble. And perhaps that's why everyone listened. And perhaps if we bring this message with this courage that he had, because he brought this good news, this news about love and charity and peace. Because you know what? We all want peace. We're just so tired of chaos. We just want peace. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want arguments. I don't want toxicity. I don't need to be right. If you want to judge me, it's okay. You can judge me. You can say what you want. When you're humble, you know yourself. You see, humble. Jesus was humble because he was so sure of who he is. That's why humble doesn't mean that you're less. Humble means you're thinking less of things for you, but you're thinking for most, for all. It's interesting because people think that being humble is being poor financially or being ignorant, in knowledge, but it's the opposite. A humble person knows their true value. They know themselves, so they don't have to pretend. They don't have to project. So that's why Jesus would have so many, just like this picture. I love this picture because he would sit on a rock. He would sit and people would listen. And you know why? Because his message brought them hope. Think about it. Back in the day, there were people that suffered, people that had very little hope a lot of times. And things haven't been much different. 2,000 years is really not a long time at all. So if we don't speak with courage, Jesus had courage. And he knew who he was. He knew what was Caesar's. And at one point he says, who is it? Whose picture is it in the coin? Oh, it's Caesar. It's the emperor. Well, then give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Because my things are not, my kingdom is not of this world. So when Jesus talked about hope, he had authority because he was calm. He knew who he was. there are three types of people who can express and who can evangelize. First, you have lecturers, right? And we have myself right now. I'm a lecturer, I guess, a mixed motivational speaker, whatever you want to call it. But most of the time, a lecturer. So lectures are not that tough to do. You have to study your material. You have to work on your anxiety, and you have to communicate in a language that people will understand the message. So that's being a lecturer. So when I want to talk about the gospel, when I want to talk about spiritism, when I want to talk about Kardec, I can do this being a lecturer, right? It's a lot of practice. It's something very that deserves a lot of respect. But that's being a lecturer. Then the second way we can do it is being more like an activist. You can be a little more involved. You can get people to join you. A lot of times when you get the youth and the kids to do right? This is the second way to be this courageous person to get the message out there. And the third one is to evangelize. That's different.
Dear friends, we're waiting for Debora to come back. Let's see if the connection is back. And meanwhile, thoughts for all of us on the call. The call is strong for us, right? Very strong. Let us bring our friends who are here while we wait for Debora to rejoin us. And think about this. Why is it that today we connected and we're being given this strong message saying, we need to do more. We need to be more courageous. Why is it? So just to remind us, in the book, Paul and Stephen, when I think of courage, I think of this book. And going through the original version in Portuguese, there are 37 times in which the word courage is repeated. And Jesus said once that courage is one of the ways we can identify somebody who is a Christ conscious person. So courage is vital for us. And there is a beautiful moment in which, and this is just second chapter, when Abigail, who after her dad is murdered brutally in front of her, we are bringing Debora back here. Debora,
Yes.
while we were waiting for your connection to settle in, I was just beginning to say about this book and how it brings us this strong message of courage that you're saying. And I was about just to mention Abigail. Abigail, after her father was murdered, after her brother was sent to slavery, she had nobody else at a time in which if women didn't have anybody else, life wasn't really friendly with them. But she found a widow who knew the family. And there's a moment in which this woman, she says to her, and I'm just quoting here quickly, her name is Sustania. Utmost courage is essential in grievous situations like this. It is not easy to lift one's heart in the midst of such terrible ruin, but we must trust in God during the bitterest of times. And then she keeps on going, and the answer, Debora, and I'll get back to you. Abigail so lovingly, she sighs and says, Sustania, my parents prepared me for an existence of courage and self-effort. I'm thinking of going to the legate and begging him. And then she talks about her plan. But why we're emphasizing this piece? Because Deborah, you're a psychologist, you're a therapist as well. And you've been helping children, teenagers, parents, families in the center, out of the center, professionally. And we see that we need to teach our children to be courageous. We need to do exactly as Abigail and Stephen's parents, to teach them about courage and self-effort. Recently, because of how easy life has become, especially in the United States, we're seeing a generation that is being raised with a lot of discouragement and least effort. Would you like to continue your beautiful explanation? We got so excited about. We would like to have you finalize with your thoughts that are leading us to the understanding that we need to help families and parents to really boosting their children the courage and self-effort, right?
Absolutely. And I think this is how, let me close this up here, and so I can be with you fully. Okay. And that's the entire, oops, am I with you? Yeah. And that's the entire where I was going to wrap up. We can speak as a lecture, we can speak as a motivational speaker, but we can evangelize. And that means we have to pass it on with an extra, something extra, which is love. We have to really show these children they're worth it. We have to show courage. We have to teach people that it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to sometimes these kids are bullied. Sometimes the teenagers are so doubtful as to their own self, as to what they should do. Sometimes a father is not sure how is he going to bring his part of the finances to the house, or the wife doesn't know how she's going to bring her part of caring for, the household as well, financially or not. But we have to bring this courage and this Abigail, this gospel, this knowledge that Spiritism brings to us, to say, look, you are worth it. We give food to the homeless at the center, but every container that we distribute, we write a message of hope. You are worth it. You are not alone. Choose your destiny. Whatever it is, like anything. But someone can say, well, to a homeless, you're going to say to choose your destiny. Choose love. Choose love. You can choose that. Choose to know that you're worth it. That's the first step. So Jesus always said, I can cure people out of their illnesses, but if they don't drink, out of my blood, like the symbolic blood, if they don't get the message, they're going to get sick again. They're going to get ill again. So we have to build up this courage to, regardless what life throws at you, you are worth it and you can do it. And let's really bring Spiritism to people to know a little bit more about. Let's mention Jesus a little more throughout our conversations. Let's mention Kardec. Who is this man? Who is this amazing person? Let's really mention this. This takes courage for us to bring these topics in our everyday conversation. So when you give food, make sure you also preach the gospel. It doesn't have to be preached in a formal way, but in an exemplar way. And that's the message here. That's exactly how I was just about to finalize. If you believe in Jesus, if you believe that Chico Xavier was mostly known for his charity than for his mediumship, because everybody knows Chico was an amazing medium, right? But he's not known for his mediumship as much as he was known from his charity. That's what really has a stamp on Chico, is his charity, not the mediumship. That's second to his charity. And then Kardec, we need to, again, if you are a logical, reasonable person and you read the gospel, you will know. And once you know, you have to put it out there. Remember the pluses, the minuses, the equal. So that's my message to all of us. Let's really be courageous. Let's really get all this courage out that we have inside and show the people around us. And every time that you're fearful, it's okay. but have courage, because this too shall pass, and it all passes. We're here to progress. So that's my message of courage, and I hope that we all have this courage to keep on going, regardless of the obstacles, regardless of the consequences. Do the right thing. Choose to really be this gospel. And if needed, use words. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debora. We feel more motivated than ever. Yeah, right? And it's good because we feel it's not only words, because we know you. Every time we encounter you, we know that you are doing more. You're helping other groups as well, and that you are always doing more to help people out. So it feels good on earth to know there are people like you. So we thank you for bringing this message to us. And I want to share that our dear John DeRosa, who became a poet, he wrote few lines, courageous spiritist. Our daily life as a spiritist means we're called to Christ to spread his good news. How and when this is done is unique to each and every one. Remember, God's way of helping us to spread Christ's message is to constantly help people cross our path, just awaiting us to demonstrate our good deeds, a smile or hello or words of kindness and generosity. And when they leave, a prayer to send them on their way. This is just a little way to be a spiritist each and every day, I guess. Right, John? He was inspired by the talk, for sure. That's what he usually does, and he was more inspired than ever today. So, Deborah, we have here with us friends who are watching, but we have here our team. We have Daisy, Paloma, Luciana, Karen, Camila. And not that this is the only team, because you know our group, we have much more people, many more people participating in the team. But these are the ones that we have here online. And we want to just share a thought or two, friends, as we were all inspired by Deborah. Who would like to begin?
I can go because thank you, Deborah. It was really inspiring, and I love the emphasis that it is not about talk, and it's really about our actions and our feelings, right? Because when I think of Jesus, and if you want to get closer, when I think of Chico Xavier, we can feel already their presence. Like I didn't meet Chico in my life, but if I think of him, I can feel him. And for sure, I can feel Jesus. And that's where I really connected to what you were saying, that it's about what we do and less about what we say. For sure, we need to do what we say, but not only just talking, right? So it really resonated with me. It brings it closer, definitely, to my heart as we are following the path to Jesus, and for us to be more verbal, inspired in the good, and inspired for us in Spiritism as a way to lead us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma.
Thank you, Paloma. Next. Carol.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for the inspirational talk. We all appreciate it. You gave us many peals of courage and hope. And your beautiful talk reminded us of something Mentor Joseph has taught all of us, that we have a vibrational responsibility to contribute with the Master while on earth. And correct me if we are wrong, Vanessa, but we believe Mentor Joseph meant being coherent in terms of our feelings, in terms of our thoughts, in terms of what we emit without words towards others, because we live as co-creators a vibrational fingerprint, so to speak, everywhere we go, so we can be leaving marks of the gospel, however small, even if it's just a little dot, a dot here and there. But you inspired us to think that this is one of the reasons God has allowed us to reincarnate, with the knowledge of the promised consoler, so we can be little dots of hope without words vibrationally, as Master Jesus is up to this day, even though he is not incarnated. We believe that right now, at this very moment, he is embracing us all, humanity, with his vibration, without words.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely, Carol. Thank you.
Daisy.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It was such an inspirational talk for sure. And as you were discussing about courage, and we're, reflecting on this, it's hard to think about courage and not think about faith too, because they walk hand in hand. And courage also requires this strong faith in God. And as you mentioned, making sure that we are solid in our faith, that is not only when everything is okay, that I am fine and everything is fine, but is, as Vanessa was sharing with us, in all of Emmanuel's books, we see that the main characters, it requires them a lot of courage and a strong faith. So Paul and Stephen, Paul, right? He had a lot of courage, because he had to step forward and admit his mistake in the same reincarnation, right? Completely do a 360 and really put himself forward. And that requires that courage and that foundational faith that he brought to us. So if we work in our courage and working our faith, or we're strengthening our faith, trusting God, right? That everything, there's a purpose, there's a reason, and then we'll march forward in as Carol was saying, this vibrational, right? This, not even sometimes without anything physically, but with our thoughts and our feelings, for sure. So thank you so much. It's such an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much, too.
Luciana.
Thank you, Deborah. It was a great talk, really giving us the inspiration to be courageous, as you mentioned in the beginning, to be spirits and show everyone, right, that we are spirits, and be the difference. As we walk to be Christian, we are transforming not only us, but everyone around us. Very touching, especially when you mentioned that we have people close to us that are alike. So how are we reflecting this Christianity to those people? So food for thought. He was very inspiring, giving us the strength to be courageous and humble, to know who we are and proceed with the mission that we have already signed up for in this reincarnation. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Luciana. We're all signed up for this one. That's great.
Yeah. And finally, Camila, you want to share a thought, Camila?
Sure. Thank you, Deborah. It was such a delight to listen to your words. You were so personable. I feel like we're, here present in person. And, as we grow up, we always hear, you got to be courageous. You got to follow your dreams. But so many times we are not aware of how to be courageous. And it's okay to feel fear, and it's okay to feel, anxiety, but to do what we must, as you said, a duty, it is imperative. So that resonated with me from your talk. So thank you so much for inspiring us today. And I certainly look forward to hearing your words again soon.
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you all for all these tidbits now that I got. See, I got all my pluses now.
We hope that everyone who is connected to us, either now, live, or later on demand, no matter when, because it's going to stay with us. It's going to be recorded in all the platforms of Kardec Radio, and then we can always listen to it again. We hope that we make the good choices and be courageous, because when this life is over, we don't want to regret that we haven't done the right things. We want to finish it off saying, I did it. I graduated. I made it. That's the goal. And then we're ready for the next level of tests and trials and learning opportunities, because that's what life is all about. Thank you, John DeRosa, who is giving us more feedback. And we couldn't be any way happier than this, because that's what we needed. I tell you, Deborah, we needed this shot of encouragement, because no matter how much we do, there's always more to be done. So we thank you for being here with us, for choosing to be here with us, sharing this, reminding us of the Spiritist teachings, and especially for us Spiritist, Deborah. We are always reminding people something that Mentor Joseph says. Think about the world. How many Spiritists are in the world? In 7 billion people, we have millions, but few millions, because majority are in Brazil, and then in Colombia, and then in some other countries in Central America, South America, and then in Europe, and then in North America, and then in Australia. But then if we sum it all up, how many of us are doing this in English, or are braving to say, as you said, check, I'm a Spiritist? No matter if people don't know, well, somebody needs to begin it. What if we're invited to do this? So we need to do our share, or people won't know it, and they need to know, because it really changes our lives, right?
Absolutely. That's the courage that a few English-speaking Portuguese or Brazilian born are doing it, because it'll be a sense of disservice to the doctrine if we kept only the pluses for us, and we are not sharing what we have in a language, especially in a country that it's such a privilege to be able to be here. Why not share this box of treasure, right, to those who want to know, but they just don't know where to begin? So I congratulate, seriously, I congratulate all the centers that are English speaking, that have English guests, that are here now speaking in English, because we are the minority in a matter of, all of this propagation of Spiritism. So really, hey, today, do a little pat here, because, hey, let's have a little courage and keep on going this movement for sure.
Yes. Thank you, Deborah. So in this highest note, we're going to move to the final steps, because this is deep therapy for our souls. Let us then continue wrapping up, because the good spirits have the advantage of our homes being open so they can enter, help us. They have been doing this throughout. And right now, as we move to the passes and the prayer, we can even close it with our full intention of being grateful and receiving what they came to deliver as well, friends. Let us do this together as Luciana leads us into the passes, followed by the prayer by Daisy, right?
That's right. So let us close our eyes and feeling the higher vibrations that enter to our home when we connect to receive these teachings of today. Breathing in and out. Let us connect ourselves with the divine in us, with the divine in our Master Jesus, and with our Creator God, feeling the energies around us like a wind blowing on us. And as gently blow, we can feel the energies are being refined, and that this flow of love can more easily flow through us. And now we can receive the remedies that the doctors and nurses of the spiritual realm has provided for us tonight. We feel that our spiritual body, together with the physical body, are lighter and is being restored, rejuvenated, re-energized. These love medicines can really transform the energies in the physical part of our body. And as we breathe, accepting the flow of life, we now can see that our home are being harmonized and aligned with the vibration of love. Everyone and everything in both realms of life in our home is being taken care, aligned, restored, receiving the love. And as we feel the love flow, we feel that everyone that is connected to us, that are part of our life, can always and can also feel the benefits of these healing energies that we are receiving. And as good Christians, loving beings, we share the love flow with all the families in the planet. And we can see the whole planet Earth being enveloped in this healing energy of love, vibrating love and aligning with the love flow of our Creator. And as we continue to feel the healing treatments, this love in us and with us. We pray together with our dear friend Daisy.
Let us then continue with our eyes closed. And let us raise our thoughts to our dear Master Jesus. Dear Master Jesus, thank you so much for sending us the Spiritist doctrine, the promised consoler that you told us that will come to stay with us for immortality. We are so grateful because through these teachings, we see life with a different lenses. We understand the challenges and shortcomings in our lives through a different perspective. And as you yourself, Master, reminded us that one of the major characteristics of Christians on earth is courage. Tonight we pray that we can be renewing our courage, the courage to share these blessings with those who cross our pathways, the courage to do the good at every situation, the courage to be an outlier, knowing that it's only through you that we will be able to redeem ourselves. We pray tonight, dear Father, especially for many who lack courage in their lives. We pray for those who feel so desperate that are contemplating taking their lives or taking the lives of others. We pray that Mother Mary and her legion of doctors and nurses and therapists can reach out, rescuing those who need consolation and hope, delivering them the courage to march forward and not give up. And we also pray, dear Father, for many souls who are suffering, those who have lost loved ones, who feel discouraged and lost, those who are going through physical or spiritual illnesses of all sorts. The showers of courage can be poured upon them, and that our whole planet can be enveloped and renewed in courage, faith, and love. Thank you so much, Master Jesus, for bringing us these teachings through Debora tonight, that we can continue feeling this love throughout our weekend and our week, today and always. And so be it.
Thank you, Deborah. A big hug to you and all the friends there. Thank you. Thank you, friends, for being here, for being together. Thank you, everyone who joined. A big hug to all of you. And tomorrow, don't forget, at 11 a.m., we'll be, thank God willing, at our Gospel Under the Pine Tree. Join us because it's so good. It feels so good. You can't miss it. All right? A big hug to all of you. There's always more at Kardec Radio. Stay tuned because Kardec Radio is always nourishing our souls. Thank you, friends.